Hi, my name is Donna Bessette, and I'm the Director of Related Arts at Rectory School. I've been working at Rectory this is my 16th year, and I have done a variety of things. I've taught guitar class for 9th graders. I'm currently teaching an acting class to 9th graders. I've taught general music to 7th grade. I'm the Director of Chorus in the fall and the winter, and I'm also the Director of the school musical in the spring. In addition, I'm the music teacher for the elementary school, which is a small program in grades K through 4. A day in the life for me at Rectory is a little crazy, but in all the best of ways. I teach such a variety of age groups and types of music and arts that at any given time I'm moving chairs around, lugging a keyboard to the dining hall where we have chorus rehearsal right now, setting up elementary instruments, tuning guitars, setting up drums for a drum circle. So a day in the life for me is moving from class to class, as well as taking care of sort of the big picture thinking of my job, which is making sure that we're giving every student at Rectory a chance to find their creative spirit, whether it be through the visual arts or the performing arts. I like to go into all the music that I teach and all the classes that I teach with the philosophy that I want all kids to feel successful, and I want all kids to feel safe to experiment and try new things. Because I find that I meet a lot of adults in life who look back on their years in schooling and say, oh, I was never good at music, or yeah, that wasn't my thing. And I really feel strongly that every person, child or adult, can find something about music and the arts that appeals to them and that they can feel successful in. So I get very excited about the idea of having a student who tells me they can't sing, yet they try chorus and they feel successful at it. And maybe they discover they can sing. Or finding someone who might consider themselves a non-musical kid or sort of a jock, or someone who kind of has pegged themselves in one category, and decides to try the guitar class in 9th grade and discovers they have a love for playing the guitar and it's something that they carry with them to their next school. So my philosophy on teaching has more to do with letting kids feel safe and comfortable experimenting and trying new things, finding the joy in music, because if it's not about that, then why do it? While at the same time providing a solid foundation of music theory and the basic music fundamentals that are necessary and required in music education. So we do follow the national standards for music education, and we stay in touch with those throughout all that we do in our planning. But ultimately, I want it to be a playful, joyful time for kids of all ages, and while at the same time helping them develop skill and confidence in music. So another thing I would add about my approach to teaching music and the arts is I'd like to always try to keep it relevant to students. So I think one mistake that maybe music teachers have made in the past is they get so set on this is the repertoire we're going to teach, or this is the way I teach this topic, that we forget that it's important to connect with kids. And I find that if I use music, for example, to teach eighth notes, if I find a pop song that uses eighth notes, it's a better way to relay that concept to a student. Rather than come in with the song that was on my mind to use to teach that. So anytime I can connect music with a child, it's just money in the bank. And that involves also tying in music of their culture and their traditions, because at Rectory we have students from all over the world, and we are constantly getting new students in every year. So to find out from a child what it is that is meaningful in their lives, what music matters to them and their family and their background, and using that as a springboard for other concepts is just always a great way to teach. So I was always involved in music as a child. From the youngest of age, I sang and played piano. I learned how to play the flute, got involved in obviously all the things that come with being a child growing up with music. While I enjoyed learning music and I loved the idea of teaching music, I was really fascinated by the effects of music on people, on relationships, on communities, on emotions. So I pursued music therapy in college. So I got a degree in music, a double major in music and psychology, and then I went on to get my master's in music therapy. So as a music therapist, I worked in a variety of settings. When I worked in hospitals I mostly worked with kids on the pediatric unit who were dealing with chronic long-term illnesses, as well as kids who were coming in for just a few-day procedure. And really I use the music as a way to help kids feel calm, as a way to normalize their experience in the hospital. So everything else was changing for them, and music was sort of a grounding place where they could feel comfortable with the familiar songs that they liked. I could talk on and on about the many stories and kids I've worked with in hospitals, including patients who were dying and for whom the music was part of that passing. And I sometimes was asked to come in and play music while kids were having an IV put in, or when patients were struggling to keep their heart rate at a steady pace. Believe it or not, music is often the thing that helps regulate a heart rate. So again, I did work ranging from working in the neonatal intensive care unit to working on the bone marrow transplant unit. But most of my work was in school programs that were day treatment programs for students who were struggling in a regular educational setting. And I did a lot of work with songwriting, with drumming circles, basically using the music as a vehicle to help kids learn more appropriate social interactions with one another, as a means to help kids express themselves where traditional methods of therapy were not as effective. And just to build, like I said, regarding hospital work, to build sort of a normalcy in these programs where often the focus was on the dysfunction. Music really brought to life some of the healthy, creative side of all kids, whether they're struggling with other issues or not. After moving to this part of Connecticut, I was made aware of Rectory School, and I was really interested in what Rectory had to offer. And it was there that I found out about a job opening. And from that point, I thought, you know, I'd really like to explore working with kids and just teaching them music, but using the skills I learned as a music therapist. So I took the job, and from the minute I started working here, I realized it was a good fit. The lines between what I was doing before and what I ended up doing at Rectory were really, it's a whole spectrum of skills needed in whatever setting you're working at when you're dealing with music and children. So it was a really nice fit. I got very excited about the idea that I was working with kids who really wanted to learn music and excel at music, while at the same time working with students who might be insecure and shy about learning music, and I could lift them up as well. So it really kind of broadened my ability to work with kids. I'm pretty active outside of Rectory. As you can imagine, a lot of it is music. So I'm part of a band. I'm in a band called 916 with one other Rectory employee, the spouse of a Rectory employee. It's had a lot of Rectory connections through the years, but we started as a band that played actually at our church, which is across the street from Rectory School. But we've developed into a group that plays out at various functions and various events. We do a lot of fundraising events, and we also just play at local venues like the Vanilla Bean. I do a lot of other things in the community, like I've done some shows at the Bradley Playhouse because I love musical theater. I'm currently involved in the concert choir of Northeastern Connecticut as their director. And then outside of music, I love cycling, I love hiking, I just love this area, so I try to take advantage of all that as much as I can. So you'll find me outside a lot doing things like that, and just, you know, hanging out with my family. So there's a lot about my artistic self that I bring to my teaching, and I think it's probably inevitable. I love harmony, I love a cappella, so I find myself always adding more to arrangements of things. When the guitar class is learning a song, I always find a way to incorporate a singer, throw in a harmony part. I love creating arrangements on the fly. So I'm not the kind of teacher that comes in with it all written out and says, this is what we're doing. If I see a kid tapping a rhythm that wasn't originally part of the song, I'll say, hey, let's pull out a shaker. I want you to play it on that. Or let's bring out a xylophone. I hear a little tune we could add. So I really do try to, I'm a lot about improv. So, and that's, I think, comes from my music therapy days. So that's a big part of what I bring as an artist into my work. And I find that that's the case also when I teach my acting class, which is a new thing at Rectory that we're doing. I'm focusing a lot on acting improv because I find that for most of these kids, they're not going to go on to become Broadway performers, but I believe the skill of learning to improvise is a beneficial skill in life, when you're on a job interview, when you're negotiating an awkward social situation. So I think that these are skills that are important, and I think we can learn them through the arts very naturally. My two younger children went to Rectory. So my daughter went to Rectory from 5th through 9th grade, and my son went to Rectory from 2nd grade through 9th grade. They loved it. They loved it. To this day, my 20-year-old says it was the best 5 years of her life. Middle school is not typically the time in people's lives they want to go back to because it's such an awkward time with some drama. But both of my kids say that this was one of their best experiences in childhood so far. When they come back to campus with me for different things, they get all nostalgic and they start sharing all their memories of all the great things that happened here. So yeah, it was probably the best thing about working at Rectory was having my kids at Rectory.